color, drama, and excitement. The American Sports Cavalcade.
Very possibly the most dramatic onboard video ever recorded in the history of drag racing came in 1990. We all rode with Kenny Bernstein in the final round of the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals. Bernstein appeared headed for victory when suddenly it was Joe Amato from behind, Amato's third consecutive win on Thunder Mountain.
Yeah. I ate two at the crash book.
It's 1 year later, and we're back again at Vandermeer Speedway in Morrison, Colorado, just a few miles from downtown Denver. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Evans, and this is the 13th running of the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals. It's moments before second-round competition, but you got to know that every top fuel driver has one mission, and that is to knock Joe Amato off of this mountain. And so far, they're making some inroads. If we can get through the crowd and find Joe, who's busily signing autographs. Joe, you got by Jimmy Nix in round one, but you've got Frank Hawley in just a few minutes. He has lane choice. Do they have you on the ropes a bit?
Yeah, a little bit, Steve. We're struggling. We smoked the tires a little bit, but Tim Richards is the king of the mountain, basically. You know, if I can just do my job driving out there, we'll be okay.
Good luck to you.
Thank you. We'll need it.
Don Garlitz is with the big story from a performance standpoint. Don?
Well, Steve, the people who live on this mountain were beginning to call it Amatoville. In fact, the racers were beginning to believe that Amato owned this drag strip. But when the smoke cleared on Saturday night after final qualifying, Laurie Johns had become the first person to exceed the 5-second barrier with a 4:99 qualifying effort. In fact, the first 4-second run in the 13-year history of the Mopar Mile High Nationals. But after first round of competition, Laurie had went from the head of the class to the behind the class. She was 0.4 of a second off her pace. Laurie, what happened, and are you going to be able to regain that performance?
I certainly hope so. I think what happened was maybe we got a little overconfident, and we wanted to make sure that we didn't make any mistakes after a performance like that. The last thing we wanted to do was go out first round, so we softened the car up a little bit, and I softened up a little bit, and the combination just wasn't good. In fact, the car left the line so slow that I thought we were getting ready to smoke the tires, and I lifted a little about 3:30 and then got back in it. So that cost us probably a couple of tenths, and we were a couple of tenths off in our tune-up. So we're going to come right back and show them what we're made of.
Very good. Well, for more on what's happening in the funny car pits, here's Bob Fry.
Don, this car hasn't been in the winner's circle since the Winston Finals at Pomona in 1990. And while some people may have thought that the funny car race for the championship in 91 would be a 3-car affair, Ed Mccullagh might have something to say about that. Ed comes in as the #1 qualifier, but Ace, after a great qualifying run, you guys really struggled in round one.
Well, we did. We misread the racetrack for first round, and it was a little greasier than we had anticipated, and we didn't back it up quite enough, and we'll adjust for that now that going into next round. We dodged a bullet first round. We'll try to go from there.
The Auto Pops car should be a force to be reckoned with as we continue with Funny Car Eliminator. But round number 2 of Top Fuel's coming up. Let's go to that action.
Indeed it is, Bob Fry, and it will pit Gene Snow against Don Prudhomme. The reason, Don Garlitz, that Laurie Johns 499 is such big news is we're racing here at over 6,000 feet. If anyone has ever gone to the mountains, they know how badly their car performs. It's a real challenge to run up here.
It certainly is. There just is no oxygen in the air to make the fuel burn properly.
And there is a thundering burnout from Don Prudhomme in the near lane, the current Winston points leader. And Don Garlitz, the crews, their entire quest is to put more and more nitro through these engines to make more power. They come up here, they've got to get rid of that fuel. They're far too rich.
That's certainly true. Now, you can't take too much away, though, because it does take the nitromethane to make the power. The trick is, how do you burn it?
Gene Snow qualified in the #4 position at a great 5:09. He disposed of Jim Head in round number 1. Don Prudhomme qualified #5 at a 5:10, and he sent Jack Ostrander back to Michigan in round number 1. Gene Snow is a fellow who has won on this racetrack in the past. He can run in this air.
This will be a very good race because both of these cars qualified very close, and both are capable of a very good time.
That's right. Their best performance is only 1/100th of a second apart. It is Snow up in smoke. Prudhomme to a 5.19 second elapsed time, but the speed way off. Only 249 miles per hour. Let's go to Don Garlitz with the Snake's crew chief, John Medlin, at the starting line.
Well, 519 just nice and steady.
Well, it was an improvement from the first run. Looked like it got a little lean down there on the other end, but for this atmosphere, for the 519 ought to be pretty good for this round. We'll see what we can do for next trip. Thanks.
Well, just about everybody is trying to get them as lean as they can down at the other end without burning them up, Dunn.
As we watch them leave the line, the two cars look like they're tied together. Excellent reaction times by both drivers, but right there, you can see the clutch comes in too hard on Snow's car and the tires go up in smoke. John Medlin, the crew chief on Perdone's, he got just exactly the right clutch management and carried her right through for the win.
A winning run for Don Perdone, but Don, kind of a strange run. Near the finish line, a lot of moisture in the air out of the pipes.
Yeah, got me. I really don't know. You know, we're up here in this altitude, and it's just really difficult. You know, you're either on or you're off. It's really hard to run up here.
It runs a 519. It should run 270. It runs 249.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, I felt like I could get out and push it, you know, towards the end. But it's just, I don't know. You know, we're going to have to leave it up to John Medlin and see what we can do. You know, maybe try and get rid of some fuel, but it's difficult up here.
It's still running well, though.
Thanks.
Well, John Medlin thinks the engine is on the lean side. Perdone thinks it's rich. They got some sorting out to do back in the pits.
Well, here is the pit area of Mike Dunn, and Mike is getting ready to face the new kid on the block, Dell Worsham in funny car, round number 2 when we come back. Stay with us from Thunder Mountain. Weather has suddenly become a factor here at the NHRA Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals in Morrison, Colorado. I'm Steve Evans along with Bob Fry and Big Daddy Don Garlitz. And Don, as thin as the air is, the last thing you need is humidity, and we're getting a little of that.
That's certainly true, Steve. You cannot burn water in these engines. You must burn oxygen and nitromethane.
Well, we saw Wendy Johnson backing her brother up. She's only 16 and works hard on that car. And they better have it right because they're up against the #1 qualifier, Lori Johns, at 499. And I tell you, she was really thrilled because her sponsor, Jolly Rancher Candy, is based right here in the Denver area. They loved all that ink she got, radio and TV. Tommy Johnson Jr. truly is driving the family car. His sister, his father, all their friends from the Tum, Ohio, who worked so hard on this project. And he is a brilliant young driver, Don Garlitz.
Well, Tommy Johnson Jr. certainly does well for the limited schedule that they run. Now, he is counting on the fact that Lori Johns only ran a 540 in the first round. You know, in drag racing, you're only as good as your last round. Now, Lori told me the crew put the car back just like it was when it went 499. We'll see if they, in fact, did.
Tommy Johnson Jr. had a great start, and Lori Johns could not catch him. Tommy, the better reaction time, the better elapsed time, a 526 to a 527 at 256 miles per hour. So the #1 qualifier is gone. Don Garlitz is with Tommy Johnson Sr.
Well, the driver really did a job.
Oh, I know he could. We just get the car to run pretty good. We told him his rest is up to him.
I was afraid something like this might happen.
Yeah, well, we told him he had to do it. We knew he was at a tough appointment with Lori. So, thank you.
One of the few crews that has radio communications with the drivers. That seems to be the coming thing, Don.
Well, Tommy was ready for Lori. As you can see by the starting line, he takes a nice advantage right to start with. Moves out in front of Lori, and Lori's car still didn't come up to that 499 performance in the qualifying. Johnson continues to gain as they move down track, and Lori is no match for the power. Even though she ran a little better speed, Johnson got there first.
What an upset, what a day. You've needed a race like this for a long time, Tommy.
Yeah, this is really nice. Coming after a long drought and defeating the #1 qualifier, the only 4-second car at Denver. That's a real morale booster for this team.
You had her beat up the starting line. Then we looked at the scoreboards, and you beat her there, too, at 26 to 27.
Yeah, I was really worried. The thing laid over bad on top end. It's still too rich, and I thought, boy, I hope she don't come around.
Great job.
Thank you very much.
Once again, the driver analyzes the engine tune-up as too rich on the top end. It's very difficult to have enough fuel to leave the line properly and still get the car to go down course and be lean on the top end. As Kenny Bernstein does his burnout, let's go back to the far end with Steve.
Lori, you know, sometimes when you break a track record as you did at a 499 under ideal conditions, and then on race day, it can throw you guys a curve.
Well, you know, I haven't been on today. I've had a terrible time driving the car. I don't know what my problem is, and, you know, they're really not as much at fault as I am. I should have been better off the line. I was going to deep stage, and for some reason I didn't turn the light out when I thought I was going to, and I got distracted, and he left, and I was still sitting there.
That was not a typical Laurie John's reaction time. We all knew that.
Yeah, I don't know what my problem is.
Well, it's certainly not performance. This team has a good chance of winning a lot of races this year.
Very frustrating to be the low qualifier and get beat early.
Indeed it is. Well, Eddie Hill, who qualified at only a 5:25 in the number 7th position and beat Dick LaHaye in round number 1 of Top Fuel, Hill has to go up against Kenny Bernstein, and he better raise the ante because Bernstein qualified number 2 at a 5:07. I had a chance to explore his pits and found something pretty neat. Kenny Bernstein is a major force in motorsports today with his Winston Cup stock car team, his IndyCar team, and of course his drag racing exploits are legendary. So how does a celebrity like Bernstein arrive in town? By private jet, you say? No, not exactly. Well, a commercial jet, first class, of course. Nope. Bernstein came to town on his Harley-Davidson, rode it here from Aspen. It is a beauty, a 1990 Heritage Custom. Bernstein has added the trick paint and all the chrome and a Screaming Eagle kit to the engine. In fact, he has been riding it every day from the track to the hotel. But this morning, drag racing legend and my buddy Big Daddy Don Garlitz, he found another method of transportation to the track. Watch this.
Well, Steve, you know, Mopar honored me as being the Grand Marshal of this Mopar race, and one of my duties was to fly in with the aerobatic professional Julie Clark and that Navy trainer. And I'll tell you what, it's a good thing I didn't have much to eat for breakfast, because on the way to the track, she did a couple of back loops, and it put my stomach in the mouth. I was kind of glad to get down on the old drag strip and get out of that thing.
Big Daddy, she had a parachute on and you didn't.
That's exactly right, and I'll tell you, I got a little nervous about that. I said, what happened? She said, well, you just got to ride her down, Big.
So that was earlier today, and this is now. Kenny Bernstein, near lane, Eddie Hill in the far lane. As we've seen at this altitude, these tricky conditions, anything can happen. Kenny Bernstein, smoke out of the pipes after a brilliant hole shot, but Eddie Hill comes through with a victory at 5:17, 268 miles an hour. Let's go to Don Garlitz with Buzzy Carter.
Looks like you let the deadwood down there.
Yeah, we made some clutch changes, and Eddie done a bunch of stuff in your fuel system. We changed it around real big time on that run, so we just went for it. We figured if we smoked the tires, we'd smoke them, but we knew we had to run good running Kenny.
You're looking good now.
Thanks, Don.
Well, with Don Perdome, the points leader, already surviving here in round number 2, this was the last thing Bernstein needed.
Well, that certainly opens the door for Amato to pass him in the points. Bernstein was brilliant on the starting line, but the clutch management system must not have been right, because Eddie Hill quickly makes up the difference. And as they move down course, he is no match for the power that Fuzzy Carter was making. Even though he ran pretty good at the end, he couldn't catch him. Dale Armstrong leaned out the motor too much on Bernstein's car.
Boy, you saw a lot of that red car for half the track or more.
But you got no idea how pretty it was dropping out of sight. That was the prettiest sight I've seen in a long time.
He dropped out of sight just as it appeared he burned some pistons, some smoke out of the pipes, and his power went away, apparently.
Oh, is that what happened? Well, I thought maybe we just made an especially good guess. Maybe not. But anyway, it was sure pretty however it happened.
And it wasn't a battle lapse time either. A 5:17, best of the round so far.
Oh, great. Well, that's not too bad. Yeah, maybe we can work with that. It felt like we had something left down here at this end, so maybe we got another one to go here.
Go find it.
Gonna try to. Thank you.
Well, there's the first driver we've seen who's happy with the performance of his engine on the top end.
And even thinks maybe there's a little more left in it. All right, next up will be Joe Amato and Frank Hawley. As Don said, if Joe Amato wins here, he moves between Kenny Bernstein and Don Perdome and Winston points, and that's what Jerry Amato, his wife, has on her mind. And there's another Jerry, Jerry Gwynn, father of Daryl Gwynn, who owns this operation. The car has run very quick this year, but sporadically. They have not been able to find the consistency they would like to have. Here they qualified number 6 at a 5:12 and convincingly beat Doug Herbert in round number 1. Now their opponent here in the second round, Joe Amato, qualified much quicker at a 5:08, and he took care of Jimmy Nix from Oklahoma City in that round number 1. So here are the two side by side, some final adjustments by Tim Richardson crew to the Joe Amato car. Amato has only won one race this year, but as we said, he could move into second in points because he has had some durability. He doesn't go out early normally.
Well, I'm sure the Gwen team have not forgotten that Amato has run here 3 times already, so he knows this mountain. They have got to step up, and now is the time to do it.
Starting line crew looking on as they carefully position the front wheels in the staging beams. A brilliant start by both drivers. Whoa, getting near the center line is Amato, but he brings it back. That was a scary moment for Jerry Amato looking down that racetrack. A 5.16 to a 5.17. That is NHRA Championship drag racing.
Well, Amato takes a slight starting line advantage, but watch his rear tires. You notice they're spinning faster than Hollis. He gave up that advantage almost immediately. They had a little too much clutch in there, and that's why his performance fell off. That also caused the car to move around. You can see it move over toward the light. Joe had his hands full, but Holly had the same problem. He moved around a little bit too, so all in all, Joe was the faster car. So that moves Amato into the final 4. It will be Eddie Hill versus Joe Amato, and Joe Amato has the lane choice, but only by 100th of a second. The second pair will be Don Perdome versus Tommy Johnson Jr. Perdome has the lane choice. Steve?
If you look at the center of Joe Amato's tire, you can see why the car was all over the racetrack. It was spinning the wheels, Joe, looking for a wall to hit.
Yeah, it was spinning around pretty good, Steve. It was skating all around, you know, but I didn't hear him or see him, and, you know, when you're in the race, you go for it.
You had a great start and a nice elapsed time considering you took the rainbow route down here at 5.16.
Yeah, I probably went 1,500 feet instead of 1,320, but as long as we got the wind light, thank God.
You know, that is your 14th consecutive wind light on this mountain over the last 4 years?
Yeah, it's getting scary now, though. You know, we keep winning these races up here, and that's a lot of pressure.
Good luck. Final 4 coming up. Presented by Castro GTX. It's a 24-hour drag racing hotline with the latest info on your favorite drivers and events. Call 1-900-468-NHRA. You'll be billed by your local phone company. Okay, Don Garlitz, it's Mike Dunn versus Dell Worsham. What a contrast in operations here.
Well, it's a contrast in one way that Dunn, with the Snickers sponsorship, has been doing very well this year. A beautiful car, beautiful operation, but his dad crew chiefs the car. Dale Worsham, on the other hand, a family operation, but again, Chuck Worsham, his dad, crew chiefs the car.
You could take Dell Worsham's trailer and put it inside Mike Dunn's trailer. The trailers don't win drag races. Talent and Desire does, and they're equal on that score. They have both won 2 NHRA national events this year. Now, because Jim White and the Hawaiian Punch Car went out in round number 1 earlier today, Mike Dunn has moved into second in the Winston point standing. You can pad that a bit right now with a victory over Worsham. Dunn qualified number 3 and beat Tom Hoover in round number 1. Worsham, only 21 years of age from Southern California, qualified number 6 at a 5.61, beat Paula Martin in round number 1, but more importantly, he came in here on a high. He didn't need elevation to give it to him. He won the Summer Nationals just 2 weeks ago in Englishtown, New Jersey. The second biggest payday in drag racing.
Well, as they come into this round, Worsham has got some catching up to do. He is a full 1/10 of a second off in performance to Dunn.
And look at Mike Dunn go. He daylights Dell Worsham, a 5.48 to a 5.58. So right there you saw just about what a 1/10 of a second looks like in this sport of drag racing. A tremendous victory for Mike Dunn. Let's go to Don Garlitz with Jim Dunn.
Well, that son of yours is certainly the class of the field today.
Yeah, we're running real good. We're scared to step on. We're slipping the tires, but we'll probably smoke them against Force next round.
Oh, please don't do that.
I hope not.
I'll tell you, there's a lot of teams out there that would kill for a nice 5.48 like that, Don Garlitz.
Certainly would. That's a good number up on this mountain. And you're looking at a car right here, Mr. Ed Mccullough, who ran a 5.82 in the first round, would probably kill for a 5.48. But he's plenty capable of running that kind of a time because he qualified low with a 5.43. Right now, let's go to Steve.
A 5.46 in round 1, a 5.48 here in round number 2, and that's what this team specializes in, consistency, right, Mike?
Yeah, that's the Jim Dunn tune-up there. It's we don't try to overpower it. We just try to be consistent and stay within 500ths of low ET and try and do it every run. We feel we're going to win a lot of rounds.
And not beat yourself, make them beat you.
That's the main thing. I mean, even as good as we're doing, as consistent as this car is, we beat ourselves a couple times already this year, but still, all in all, we're doing a real good job with the Snickers Kmart Dodge.
From a point standpoint, you got to hope somebody nails John John Forrest before they do you.
Well, yeah, definitely, because John's got a few rounds on us, but we'll just keep trying to win our races. We're going to take one round at a time.
And this car appears to be perfect mechanically. Not a drop of oil or moisture on it.
Well, here using the same type of a battle plan that I used to. Don't try to be as fast as you can, but be consistent and steady.
Here is an amazing guy. Gary Jensen in the near lane as funny car competition continues. An industrial arts teacher from Southern California who for 20 years has spent the summer on the drag racing tour. He is up against Ed the Ace Mccull, as Don said just a moment ago, the #1 qualifier. Now, I never dreamed at the beginning of the season I would be saying this, but Ed Mccullough in the Outer Pops car is still looking for his first win of 1991. Pete Lynn Soroka in round #1. Gary Densham runs a very conservative but very safe operation. Qualified at a 563, beat New Jersey's Jerry Caminito in round #1. Densham is the kind of guy driving the California Discount Warehouse car you never can count out, Don. He's not going to beat himself. You've got to do it.
Well, there's an old saying in drag racing, Steve. You're there to keep them honest. That means you're not going to run the best, but you're going to be there every time.
Densham is ahead. Gary Densham, oh, he falls back by a car length. Mccullough comes around at a 555, and Gary Densham gave him everything he had and a little bit more. At a 569, only 218. So Densham shut it off when he realized Mccullough was coming around to save his parts and pieces.
Watch this start. Densham takes an unbelievable starting line advantage, and it looks like he's going to outrun Ace Mccullough. They move down course, and the cars are pretty steady, holding that distance that he gained on the starting line. But then all of a sudden, something happens to Dencham's car, and Mccullough's car begins to make a tremendous move. And as they reach the finish line, you can see Dencham's car fell off to a 218-mile-an-hour time, giving the win to the Ace.
Well, after a fairly slow first-round effort, Ed Mccullough, the low qualifier, has this car headed in the right direction again. He's 555. Not what you wanted, but a lot better.
Well, that was a good drag race right there.
That it was.
You know, Gary did a hell of a job there. That was a good race. Yeah, we need to run quicker than that, but we had to back it up to go forward. So we were lucky enough to get by that round. Luck hangs with us. Maybe we'll get our act together before it's over and, you know, put some performance down.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Well, Mccullough does know this track. He won here last year. The question is, can they get it tuned up in time before somebody outruns them? In the Don Perdome pit, the team prepares a car to face Tommy Johnson Jr. in the Top Fuel Final Four. Mile High Nationals. Let's take a ride with John Forrest. Look at that thing move around. As we continue with Funny Car Round 2, John Forrest will be facing Whit Bazemore. Now, John Forrest has the lane choice based on the round's previous performance. Steve?
A very important repair is being done on Joe Amato's car, guys. Tim Richards, or the General as Joe calls him, has not had an onboard computer the last 2 runs. When you find his readouts crumpled up like this, you can bet they're just flat liners. And they have traced the problem to apparently a dead battery in the computer that's been in there for like 3 years and finally expired. So hopefully Tim will gain some knowledge on this next run.
And I'll tell you, up on this mountain, that's one of the most critical pieces of equipment on the entire car.
I guarantee you, crew chief for John Forrest, Austin Coyle, will be the first to tell you that. He lives and dies sometimes by that computer. I guarantee you, yep, he's going over, the body's up. They'll make an adjustment to the barrel valve at the top of the fuel injector and some other things. John Forrest is the Winston points leader. He has 2 victories and several runner-up finishes this year. Now, earlier this year, had you drawn Whit Bazemore, which was unlikely because he probably wouldn't have qualified, you figured it would be a pushover. He's been getting a lot of help from the Gerald Gwynn crew, and is very quickly losing the nickname that some pundit put on him of Whit Blazemore. This car is getting down the racetrack with consistency, something the young man from Atlanta has never had. John Forrest, that turn not take him lightly.
And don't forget, Steve, this mountain is the great equalizer.
Forrest doesn't see Bazemore. Forrest wins it by a car and a half as Whit Bazemore has some tire smoke, and that caused him to shut it off. But off the starting line first, it was Bazemore. He gave 4 spits the first half of the track. Let's go to Don with Austin Coyle.
Well, it was nice and clean, only 55, but you're in the next round.
Well, it looks like we got to go a little bit to outrun Dunn on this next pass, but I think we got a little more left.
I'm sure you have.
So a 5:55 puts John Force into the Final Four. Let's have another look.
Well, Whit Bazemore was certainly ready for John Force on this one. Look how much advantage he takes right off the starting line. But he didn't have that power that it takes to make these cars perform well at this altitude. And then the clutch management system must not have been just exactly right. We see a little smoke coming off the car as they move down course, and Austin Coyle's awesome power moves him out well in front for the win.
John Force and Whit Bazemore, that was quite a good race, John, till about half track or so when he faded.
Yeah, he must have left on me. We put a blower on it, and the car, of course, the leave time was my deal, but the car just wasn't reacting like it should. But it got some power out in the middle and drove around him, so we'll just take that one a little bit lucky there.
And you know what that sets up, don't you?
Well, that gives Dunn the lane choice, but we're going round for round, and we got a couple, and right now we got to go back and find something in this race car, but Coyle always does.
It looks to me like that something might be a little more clutch off the starting line, because that bad reaction time is not always the driver's fault.
All right, it's time to wrap up round number 2 of Nitro Funny Car competition. A pair of H's, Al Hoffman versus Richard Hartman. The body comes up on the Hartman car, and I believe this is standard operating procedure for them as well. Now, neither qualified very quickly, both at 5:84 and 12th and 13th respectively. But when they're that close together, it means the fans are probably going to get a good car race. And of course, that's why everybody came.
You're certainly right, Steve. They're very evenly matched.
Al Hoffman beat Mark Oswald in round number 1 in his BDS or blower drive service entry, while over on the other side of the ladder, Richard Hartman, the Rebestos clutch entry, sent Jim White home, who had been number 2 in Winston points. Quite a blow for Jim White. There you see a crewman carefully bringing Richard Hartman in. It's hard until you get very close to the starting line to see that Christmas tree, to know where you are on the racetrack.
Well, you can bet that Richard Hartman is pumped up after he outran Jim White in round 1, but so is Hoffman. He put away Mark Oswald, so both of these guys are on a natural high.
Absolutely, and they are staged and ready. Hartman appeared to leave first. Hartman into the wall. Hartman puts the right side of the automobile into the concrete, shoots her out. Everything is fine for Al Hoffman, and he has won it at a 5:75, picking up a little bit from his qualifying pace, 258 miles per hour. But let's go back again and have a look at Richard Hartman. This is the second race in a row he's impacted the concrete.
Well, they started just perfect, almost identical reaction time, but something happened on Hartman's car. It looked to me like something must have got under one of the rear drive wheels and caused the car to veer very rapidly to the right. Hartman tried to correct it, but it didn't make any difference. It still made contact with the wall, destroying some carbon fiber parts. Very expensive to repair. Meanwhile, Bob Fry is with Richard at the far end.
Richard Hartman in the Rebestos clutches car, a close encounter of the worst kind.
Yeah, we've been doing that a lot lately.
Yeah, starting to make this a habit. What happened to the car on the line?
The car's making a real good move. We tuned it up, we thought, and it just too much for the track. Once it got off the pad, I think, and it shook real hard. I couldn't see, and I thought I was still going straight, and next thing I knew, I saw the wall coming, so I got out of it, and it still wanted to go towards the wall, so I touched it just a little.
I think it'd be you guys just making too much power?
Well, I just don't think we're applying the power correctly.
But you're okay?
Yeah, I'm all right.
All right, Richard, good luck to you.
Thanks.
Richard Hartman, not very happy. He's had a couple of those encounters with the wall in recent weeks.
Well, that does set up the Funny Car Final Four. Ed Mccullough versus Al Hoffman. Mccullough has the lane choice by a huge margin, 0.2 of a second. And John Force will race Mike Dunn. They come head-to-head, the number 1 and number 2 Winston points earners, Force and Dunn. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Pro Stock. Back to the NHRA Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals. I'm Steve Evans along with Big Daddy Don Garlitz and Bob Fry. And those are the smoking rear wheels on the Chevrolet Beretta of Bruce Allen as we begin round 2 of Pro Stock competition. Now, there's not much the crews can do to these automobiles to compensate for the altitude. They don't run nitro, they run gasoline, so you can't just tip the can a little harder. They're not allowed to run superchargers. You can't overdrive the blower. All you can do is a little more compression, maybe a little more ignition timing. Warren Johnson had a real scare in round number 1 up against Jerry Ekman. Johnson won, but by 1/100th of a second. Bruce Allen, well, he would have lost were it not for a quicker reaction time against Mark Powlick in round number 1. So here's two lucky guys to be this far at this moment. Warren Johnson knows this track very well. When he lived in Minnesota, he competed on a divisional basis up here. He knows every pore and bump in the racetrack.
Well, Allen certainly has an advantage in performance of a few hundredths over Johnson, and that's a lot in pro stock racing.
Oh, absolutely. The yellow car from Texas, our famed Rear and Morrison team, the Super Shop Chevy Beretta, Bruce Allen. Boy, they are staging very, very carefully here. No mind games. They just want to be positioned perfectly on the line. Great start by Bruce Allen, but is it enough? No, it is not enough. From behind comes Warren Johnson, a 765 to a 775. Allen made up half of that run up the starting line, but couldn't compete with the other 500ths of a second. You'll clearly see the yellow car move first.
Well, even though Warren Johnson had a bad first-round performance, Bruce Allen knew that he was plenty capable of running good, so he took all the advantage he could on the starting line, but unfortunately, it wasn't enough. The power of Warren Johnson was clearly evident as they moved down the track, as he moved ahead of Bruce Allen to take the win.
Johnson almost runs 180 miles an hour. That's impressive up here. Bob Fry is with him.
Warren Johnson came in as the #1 qualifier, but WJ stumbled a bit in that first round. What happened?
I think wind shift into 5th gear, you know, with all these electronics they got on there, we just had one of those little electrical gremlins in there, just wouldn't go into 5th gear, and I had to keep watching Ekman and just coast to a win on that one. We were just plain lucky on it.
Performance level in this round was more what you expected, huh?
Yeah, I figured it should be a low 70 on that round.
You're in the 60s, right about where you qualified.
Excellent.
Good luck to you next round.
Well, the 5-speed transmission has become all the rage in pro stock. About a half a dozen drivers have it. You won't have to worry about electronics so after this race, as NHRA's outlawed that. We'll talk more about that in just a bit. Right now, if this car looks familiar and almost like a twin to Warren Johnson, it should. It comes out of the same truck. Scott Jeffrey, on 25 years of age, drives the machine. He beat Ricky Smith in round 1. That's how good he is. And he'll be up against Larry Morgan. Now, earlier, I had a chance to get inside and play with Larry Morgan's Oldsmobile. Recently, NHRA approved the use of 5-speed transmissions in pro stock cars. They did not, however, approve of the way racers were shifting them electronically. They want the driver to be doing it himself. So as of this race, you can have a 5-speed, that's fine, but shift it manually or pneumatically with air pressure. We're in Larry Morgan's Castrol Oldsmobile. This is the first look we've had at a prototype air shifter. It's really pretty neat, and this gold button, well, that's the secret to everything. He starts the car in neutral, and this little clock tells him where he is. One push of the gold button, he's in low gear. Stages the car. The race is on. 2nd gear, 3rd gear, 4th gear, 5th gear, coast up, onto the turn up, puts it into neutral. All in all, pretty easy, pretty slick, but Larry still has to make the decision as to when to shift those gears. It cannot be done automatically.
Well, it sounds complicated to me, but you heard Warren Johnson. There could still be some gremlins out there that'll have to be worked out.
Not to mention, under these G-forces, your thumb could slip off of that little gold button. All right, moving forward, near lane is Scott Jeffrey on the Warren Johnson team car, and working as a blocker here up against Larry Morgan in the Castrol GTX Oldsmobile. RPMs come up to the moon, they'll sidestep the clutch, and the race will be on.
And we'll get to see Morgan work that transmission.
Oh, it's a beauty. It is a great drag race. It is Scott Jeffrey on. Kurt Johnson, crew chief on both cars. He likes that one. Jeffrey on with a shootout at 772 to Larry Morgan 776, and the lead was almost identical. Terrific car race. And up comes Joe Lapone Jr. here in round number 2, and he will face off with Bob Glidden.
And you know, Bob Glidden is one that pioneered this 5-speed transmission, and there was a couple of times he didn't shift it either.
Oh, absolutely right. Right now, let's go down to Bob Fry.
The blue and white cars are on opposite sides of the ladder. That's exactly the way the team plans it. Congratulations, Scott. You're marching on.
Thank you very much. I just got the best crew in the world, and Kurt Johnson, Warren's son, and Greg Anderson, and Buck Rickard. These guys are unbelievable. We just pulled up into the staging lanes literally with my belts on because we made a motor change in between 1st and 2nd round, and it paid off. Thank you.
Well, keep working these guys hard, working on 2 cars.
That's for sure, but it all pays off in the end.
72, you happy with that performance?
I'm very happy. Very happy with a win light. I don't care how I get it as long as I get it. Thank you.
Well, those engines they pull out of their transporters and plug into these cars, as far as the pro stocks are concerned, have been dyno tested. It's not an unknown quantity. They pretty much know how it will react. Joe Lapone Jr., one of the real nice guys in pro stock racing, and a lot of fun to boot, qualified at a 772, beat Ray Franks in round 1. Bob Glidden defeated the very tough Jerry Haas in round number 1. Glidden qualified number 4. He wasn't happy with that at 7.69 seconds. But right now at 69, it looked pretty good, Don.
Yeah, he'd like to get some of those 60s where he'd feel like he could run with Warren Johnson, because that's who he's going to face sooner or later.
Now, some of those qualifying numbers are deceptive. They were done in the cool of the evening under the lights here at Vandermeer Speedway. Now we're in the heat of the day, so the performances fall off a bit. Let's listen to them. Glidden goes to the Final Four at 7:75 with the Motorcraft Ford Pro, 177 miles per hour. The Summit racing machine of Joe Lapone is headed for the Interstate at a 7:75 as well, but a slower reaction time, 176 miles per hour.
Well, Bob Glidden's reaction times today have been extremely good, and that's where you have to make it up if your performance is off just a little bit in pro stock racing.
Well, our onboard camera in pro stock couldn't be riding with a better car. The dominant Dodge and Darrell Oldham, the Winston points leader. Let's go to the far end, Bob and Bob.
Bob Glidden's been racing long enough that he knows how to adapt to any conditions. The hot air, the high altitude, it really makes you guys work.
I'm not sure about that, Bob. We'll see what kind of adaptations we can make to try to run this next car. You know, Johnson, he's really tough, and I don't know how we're going to cope with him.
Another friendly rivalry, a renewal of that rivalry, huh?
Well, it's not going to be too friendly, I can tell you that, but it'll be a rivalry.
Never is when those two get together. Darrell Oldham does not have a 5-speed transmission. He's not yet gone that route. Doesn't feel he needs it, apparently. But here it would have helped. He qualified number 2 instead of number 1. 7:65 the number, beat Frank Iaconio. And his competition will be one of the real success stories of this season. Jim Yates from Virginia in the Bram Autolite Pontiac. And here we get kind of their perspective of the quarter mile here in Morrison, Colorado, Vandermeer Speedway. And, of course, the Mopar over on the far side of Oldham. Yates in the near lane. On board with Oldham. Shifting manually, as you saw, the 4-speed transmission, and a clean car length victory for Oldham as he gets the car shut down, a 773 to a 780. And that sets up our pairings for the Final Four, the normally aspirated factory hot rod Gulf Road Dock. It will be Scott Jeffrey on up against Darrell Oldham. Jeffrey on with the lane choice. He'll take any advantage you can get when you have to race that Dodge. It'll be Johnson up against Glidden. The fans always love it when those two get together. Bob Fry?
You guys have run in the mid-60s, you and Warren. How fast do you think the cars can go today?
Warren just laid down a 65, so we know for sure they'll go the mid-60s. And we qualified at a 65. If the air gets good enough, we can run 65 again.
Well, we certainly know you'll answer the bell for that next round.
Thank you.
Stay with us. When we return, there truly will be thunder on the mountain. The Final Four in Top Fuel. Already completed for the first pair in the Final Four of Top Fuel Eliminator here at the NHRA Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals in the rarefied air of Vandermeer Speedway. Over on the far side will be Tommy Johnson Jr. Johnson has made the final round here at this race 2 times. That's his sister out front there handling the backup choice. But that was in an alcohol funny car. Far different situation, Don Garland, especially racing Don Prudhomme, who you know the kid grew up idling.
That's exactly right. And he comes into this round with a little performance disadvantage, but they're operating on a very strict budget. It will be interesting to see if they're going to pull out the plugs to run the snake, because they know they're going to need a little bit more. Prudhomme is certainly capable of running in the O's on this hill.
And there is Prudhomme strapped into the cockpit of the Skoal Bandit automobile. 300-inch wheelbase, somewhere around 5,000 horsepower. At sea level anyway, more like 4,000 here. The crew wiping away the last bit of grit on the tires, hoping to get maximum traction. Free stage. Tommy Johnson Jr.'s crew looking on, fingers crossed. His sister Wendy, arms folded. Oh, side by side, the snake falls back. Jim Brissett, the crew chief on Johnson's car, says, yes, we drilled Prudhomme. Tommy Johnson Jr., 5:28. Don Prudhomme at a 5:34. Don Garlitz is at the starting line.
I'll tell you, when it's your day, it's your day.
We wasn't even coming to this race Tuesday, and our Pizza Hut sponsor helped us out a little bit of money. Just think what we could do if we had a sponsor.
Boy, no telling. You know, Don Garlitz, let's look at this again. Something happened to Prudhomme's car. Let's see if we can figure out what it was.
Well, you can see that the Johnson crew decided not to hop the car up. They were just going to go with it and hope that the Prudhomme made some kind of a mistake. Well, it wasn't really a mistake. He did quite well until something happened to the car, and it looks like the blower belt came off. You see the fuel come out of the exhaust pipes. That means no manifold pressure, and of course, that gave the win to Tommy Johnson Jr.
Now you have dreams about going into a final round. How's it feel?
Boy, this is nice. At Denver, I've been in the final here twice and lost them both. I'm going to try not to let that happen again.
Turn it around.
Thanks.
Well, you can tell he's happy. Beat one of the legends in the sport.
Another happy guy already is Joe Amato, who just saw Tommy take care of Don Prudhomme. Now, no matter what happens here, Prudhomme is going to leave here today still the Winston points leader. But Amato could seriously erode the distance by which he leads. Eddie Hill, he's not thinking about points right now. He just wants to whip Amato.
Well, that's how the people who follow the points closely, like Amato, Prudhomme, and Bernstein, think. They're thinking way ahead and what the points are going to mean to them from race to race.
All right, Joe Amato has a tough draw here. Eddie Hill is one of the few guys that has been kind of happy with their combination and figured they were going forward. What a ride. And the ride is over with Joe Amato victorious, moving into yet another final round, 4th year in a row. Oh, 5:09. The best performance of the day, 271 miles per hour. And that sets up the Top Fuel finale. It will be Joe Amato against Tommy Johnson Jr. Amato has the lane choice.
Boy, that's a Cinderella story already. Tommy Johnson Jr. in the final. Meanwhile, in Warren Johnson's pit, Warren prepares his car for that confrontation with Bob Glidden. And what a race that will be. Neither driver likes to stage his car first. Starter Buster Couch is going to have a hard time getting those two to the line. On the other side of the ladder, Johnson has got his teammate, Jeffrey On, in exactly the right spot. He's racing Darrell Alderman, and he has lane choice.
For the 4th year in a row, Joe Amato goes into the final round on his favorite mountain.
Whew, Steve, there's not much air for to breathe, but boy, 5:09 I heard, that's a pretty good run.
And Tim Richards is tuning by the seat of his pants, the old-fashioned way, without the computer the last couple of runs.
Same thing happened last year. We didn't get a computer till the final, so we didn't want to change things around. We weren't planning to do it that way, but Tim, my guy's doing a good job, and thank God I've been trying to drive pretty steady today, and here we are in the final again.
Well, Tommy Johnson Jr. has been driving very steady as well.
Yeah, I know. He's definitely intimidating. He's one of them rookies I was talking about. But the nice part is Bernstein and the Snake are both out, and we're picking up some valuable Winston points toward the World Championship.
You've already moved into second. I'm sure you knew that.
Yeah, we're in second, and if we can win the final, we'll be real close to first.
Joe Amato always with his eye on the big picture, looking forward to a 4th Winston Championship. We'll be back with the Funny Car Final 4.
They're at Vandermeer Speedway on their feet at the NHRA Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals because Mike Dunn and John Forrest, the two best funny cars in the land right now, go head-to-head in the Final 4. And it's not just drivers competing here, it's also crew chiefs. Austin Coyle, John Forrest's man, against Mike Dunn's dad, Big Jim Dunn. As they're getting ready, let me take just a moment to invite you to become a member of a very special organization, the National Hot Rod Association. For just $45 per year, you get 48 issues of National Dragster, a patch, a pen, a rule book, and more. And if you order by calling the number on your screen, you'll get a free copy of Diamond P's home video, Drag Racing 1990. So make that call today. Don Garlitz, we're on board here with John Forrest. Austin Coyle appears to be very calm and very confident.
That's right, and it's not very often that they come into an event or a race or a round even that they are the underdogs, and that's just what they are right now. He's almost a 1/10 of a second off of Dunn's performance.
I totally agree with you. John Forrest has been in a nice position. He has led the Winston points since the very beginning of the year when he won the opening race, the Winter Nationals out in Pomona. But Mike Dunn is creeping up. They both have 2 victories. John Forrest, deep stage, is trying to get 6 inches closer to that finish line. We're with John Forrest. Look out the left side. What do we see? Now he sees Mike Dunn. Mike Dunn wins it in 200 points. 544 to a losing 556, 262 to 258 miles per hour. Rare that you see John Forrest accomplish what they call a deep stage.
A deep stage, by definition, makes the reaction time better in that the car moves out of the beams quicker. But in reality, on this race, these two cars left almost identical. And it was Austin Coyle who did not make enough power to deal with the Mike Dunn car. It was definitely more powerful than John Forrest on this day.
Consistent is becoming a cliche in describing Mike Dunn. How about we say steady, a 544 again?
Well, that's what he tuned her up for. We didn't want to beat ourselves. We figured if he could step up and run a low 40 or a 30, he deserved to win. So we're just trying not to beat ourselves.
Your dad can guess these elapsed times. He's going to run within 100th usually.
When he gets a handle on the combination, when he's real sure of it, yeah, he can. If he tries something new, he'll say, well, I don't know what it's going to do. But usually after 1 or 2 runs on a new combination, he can get her pretty close.
Nothing like consistency to give you confidence. More problems set into the moto pit. First, no computers. Now, a major engine change. This could spell problems for the team.
And you don't think drag racing isn't hard work? Let's hear from John Forrest.
Looked like you had a nice move on the line. That was pretty close at the finish line.
Well, I cheated a little bit. I deep staged her, tried to give a little help, and but it takes off a little of the car's run, so the car probably obviously ran a little bit better. But we're happy. We got a couple of rounds, and we'll see what he can do.
Well, he would like to see Mike Dunn lose in the final round to prevent him from earning any more points. Here's a guy that would like to race him there. The body is up. Crew Chief Tom Anderson checking things out for Al Hoffman. Hoffman won the Winston Invitational earlier this year. His wife Helen out in front there, originally from Australia. This is a team no longer can be considered an underdog in any way, shape, or form. And Ed Mccullough and his crew chief Bernie Federley there know that. They're loaded for bear against Hoffman. There's no easy ones these days.
Well, he comes into this race as the low qualifier, but he has not had that performance all day. He's been like 555, just kind of in the middle of the deal.
Well, if he can do another one of those, it may be enough for Hoffman, though. Mccullough pulling away, streaking away, and that's exactly what he did. Another 550, a 559 to be exact, at 257 miles per hour, defeats a 576. Let's go to Dunn with crew chief Bernie Federley.
Well, Jim and Mike Dunn are going to be really hard to handle in that final. You got any plans, Bernie?
Well, I think we can, I'm hoping we can step up a little bit. They're running great, and I think we really have our work cut out for us. But I think we'll probably have the lane we prefer, and I think things will go just fine. We can sure give it a shot.
It's harder here at this altitude to pull one out of the hat than it is at sea level. So the final in funny car will pit Ed Mccullough up against Mike Dunn. Dunn has the lane choice. Mccullough hoping his crew chief Bernie Federley has another ace up his sleeve. Auto pits at Vandermeer Speedway. The crew's still changing engines, Don Darling.
Yeah, and look, there's the flywheel on the bench that haven't even built a clutch assembly yet. That's a major component when you're making one of these changes.
Oh, absolutely. They better get it in gear here because NHRA has a certain time limit you're allowed. If you're not in the lanes, they'll run without you. Well, these guys are in the lanes for the Pro Stock Final Four. Daryl Olderman versus Scott Jeffrey on. Dare I call Olderman an underdog here, Don?
Well, it's certainly what he is. He has not run well this afternoon. Now, he qualified well with a number 2, but during the race, he's just been one of the guys.
Well, this track does not like bright sunshine shining down on the rubber. It tends to make the track a little looser. I think he's handicapped because he does not have a 5-speed. He's the only remaining car in Pro Stock competition with the old Lenco 4-speed. Let's watch him pull the levers. There's Jeffrey on out his left window. And Jeffrey on stays there and goes to the final round. A 770 to an 813. You could feel as you rode with Daryl Alderman shut that car off early. He didn't like that run one bit. So Jeffrey on is already in the final. Bob Glidden hopes to prevent it from being an all-team Johnson affair.
This should be one of the most exciting races of this entire event. Glidden versus Johnson. I've been to events when they went to stage, they didn't want to be the first one in. And Buster Couch would have to beat on the windshield and shake his fist at him to get these two guys to stage. Unbelievable. Steve?
Well, Daryl, this is just not your favorite environment in which to race, is it?
No, it seems like that the altitude should affect the car, not the driver. I just haven't had very much luck up here. I shorted out on the starting line a while ago, and Scott did a good job. He might win this race.
The 5-speed cars had an advantage here in this altitude.
I think so. Warren seemed to be extremely strong. Larry seemed to run good, and Scott was running good too.
Sorry to see you out.
That's the way it goes. That's racing.
Yeah, you can have that big smile when you got as many points as he does.
Well, I disagree with Daryl. This altitude affects me just as much as it does the cars. I have a hard time functioning properly up here.
Let's see who does stage first. The blue car's Johnson, the red car's Big. You were right, Big. Finally, Johnson moves in. He got tired of that game. He's set and ready.
Well, they left together. No advantage there. Oh, Clinton just didn't have quite enough. Warren Johnson makes it an all-blue and white car final with a 764, 180 miles per hour. A terrific effort, and one the race fans here on the mountain in Colorado won't soon forget. And that sets up the Pro Stock finale. It's Team Johnson, Warren versus Scott. Warren has the lane choice.
Boy, I tell you, I wouldn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. How is Jeffrey On going to deal with his boss, Johnson, in that final? Meanwhile, back in the Ed Mccullough pit, who faces Mike Dunn in the funny car final, Bernie Fedley and the boys have given the car a little massage and look ready to go.
Well, down here to congratulate his boss and his final round opponent has got Jeffrey On. Great job, 769.
Scott did an excellent job on that.
Well, you didn't do bad.
Well, we won. That's the bottom line. We had to both win to get to the finals, and we accomplished that part of the deed.
We've had this conversation before, off and on camera, so I know. I really don't need to ask it, but this will be a car race. Absolutely, may the best man in car win.
There's no doubt about it. We went through this at Columbus, and there was no holes barred. We're out to, first of all, we have to please those fans out there. If they aren't in those stands and see an honest race, we aren't here at all.
It'll be an all blue and white final.
And maybe Warren will just go over to Scott Jeffrey On's car and give it a little tune-up so maybe he can win.
The Mustang.
Maine here at the NHRA Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals. And there is Joe Amato blending up a special brew she hopes will help carry her husband Joe to the title here. The crew at the rear of the car just completing what has been a very exhaustive engine change, but they will make it to the lanes, no problem there. They're as good as you'll find in this business. And speaking of good, Team Johnson, that's all we see on the starting line for the Pro Stock final. Warren Johnson versus Scott Jeffrey On. Johnson has the lane choice, has chosen the near lane, but Jeffrey On very comfortable over on the far side. Warren Johnson has won many, many national events. Scott Jeffrey On has never had the pleasure. And Warren Johnson isn't about to let him have it today if he can do anything about it, Dunn.
Well, I hope we get it off soon. It looks like those skies are pretty threatening up there. A lot of water coming over that hill.
Absolutely. Now, you talk about a busy crew. They're all out on the starting line at the same time. Kurt Johnson, crew chief, essentially on both cars. Now, you can't have any loyalty one way or the other. From a point standpoint, obviously they would like Johnson to take the win light, but it is a car race. Warren isn't about to break that young driver's spirit with any kind of shenanigans.
Well, how can the team lose? They win no matter who wins.
Oh, absolutely. Warren Johnson, near lane, the man who owns this operation, has developed these Oldsmobile automobiles. 5 speeds a pair. Johnson has to drive around Scott Jeffrey On, but he's up to it. A 764 to a losing 776. 179 miles an hour for Johnson, and just 3 slower at 176 is Scott Jeffrey On. I'm telling you, Jeffrey On embarrassed Johnson a little bit on the starting line, unless Johnson maybe let him do that.
Well, young Scott Jeffrey On certainly took the starting line advantage. However, his starting line reaction time was no better than Johnson's reaction time from previous rounds. It was that Johnson fell off in this round. Now, maybe he was just a little confident because he certainly entered this round with the fastest car, and he did drive around Jeffrey On as they went down course. As you can see, he beat him by an easy car lap.
It has been exactly 20 years since 2 team cars met in the Pro Stock final, and Warren Johnson, the team captain, has won it. Great job.
Thank you, Steve. It's actually been less than that because I was in the team final in 1986 with Don Coons with the Goodwrench cars. So I won that one, too.
So I forgot. I think you raced Scott Jeffrey On tougher than you would have anybody else because you have to share the same pit with him.
Exactly. I mean, I got to beat up on the kid. The kid's getting pretty good.
Tell you what, come here, kid. You had a terrific reaction time. You were gunning for him.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but when you run a guy, obviously, like this guy, you got to try your best, and I was just thrilled to be in a final round again. You know, everything's happened so well in this Warren Johnson Oldsmobile over here that I'm just tickled to death.
It's so hard to run 2 cars, but you're doing it successfully.
Well, we have a little bit different approach than probably other teams that have tried that concept, and I think it's working out well just the way we've been doing it.
Congratulations, champ.
Thank you very much.
I know how proud they must feel. In all my years of racing, my team only ran in the final against each other once. It was way back in 1965.
That's why you quit running 2 cars. Oh, what a funny car final. 2 of the best put-together teams. in all of drag racing. The Snickers car, the E.B. Able team out of Pennsylvania, Mike Dunn at the wheel, the Otter Pops car, Larry Minor Racing out of Hemet, California, with the veteran Ed Mccullough. Mike Dunn here desperately wants to win for 200 more points and get him ever closer to John Force. You can bet somewhere in the grandstands is John Force. Not saying much right now.
Well, Bernie Federal, he must be pretty confident. They didn't do a lot to the car before this round, and I suspect that they figure they've got the combination back from that low qualifying 543.
Well, let's hope for their sake that they do, because Mike and his dad, Jim Dunn, have had a flawless performance here today. Boulder Free Stage, the Funny Car Final, the Mopar Parts Mile High National. Dunn is in. McCullough's in. McCullough leaves too soon. The champion will be Mike Dunn in the near lane. He's going to try to win it twice. Can't quite get around him. Oh, a 547 to McCullough's 554. That was a very calculated move on the part of Ed Mccullough. I think he and Bernie Federally figured they had all they could possibly generate.
Well, I do believe that Mike psyched him out.
Yeah, I hope so, because I can hardly outrun him, but we ran consistent all day. I hopped it up and it went the wrong way, I guess.
But you run good. You ran steady. Very same runs, run after run, and I don't think they figured they could match that.
That's what we try to do, just get consistent and stay after it. Thank you.
Well, as you're about to see when we look at this race one more time, Ed Mccullough almost pulled out the whole shot of the day.
This is how easy it is to be champ or chump. 24 thousandths of a second is all that separated Ed from getting a green light and possibly winning the race.
With a perfect string of 5:40 elapsed times, Mike Dunn is in the winner's circle. Great job. What about your dad and the consistency of this car?
Oh, I can't say enough about the crew. My dad and the rest of the crew just did a heck of a job, and to come up here and win for Mopar, you know, the Snickers, Kmart, Dodge Daytona just ran real well. And I want to say something. You know, we lost Joe Paisano this week, and he was pretty close to me, and I don't know, I just feel like he was with me today, because I was driving pretty good, and you know, I just like to think that maybe this was his last ride, and no matter what can be said about him or whatever, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys if it wasn't for Joe Paisano, and I'm gonna miss him.
Well said. He was with all of us today.
Joe Paisano, longtime engine builder and drag racer, passed away at the track Friday afternoon. We'll be back with the Top Fuel Final after this.
Mike Dunn's Funny Car victory celebration goes on, signing autographs with the ambulance crew, anybody down there that wants one. But as Mike said earlier, a moment like this wouldn't have been possible without all the help he received from his former car owner, Joe Paisano. And we're reminded of a moment back in '88 at the Keystone Nationals. Mike had just been beaten in a very close race with Kenny Bernstein. He was down, he was out. Joe Paisano showed up, and they showed a moment that spoke volumes about the man without hearing a word. We'll miss you, Joe, everybody in this sport. It's time for Joe Amato and Tommy Johnson Jr., the Top Fuel Final. And here are the thundering burnouts to clean off those tires and heat up this racetrack as everybody tries to beat the rain.
Well, Amato has the lane choice. He has the best performance from the previous round, but he has completely changed the engine, and that means all that data that they've gathered on the previous engine is useless. It'll be up to Tim Richards. Can he bring that new combination up to par? I'm sure that Tommy Johnson Jr. hopes he can.
And a little earlier, I had a chance back in the pit area to talk to that young lady we just saw backing up the car, Tommy's sister.
We have talked many times about the important role women play in these various race teams, but I've never seen a gal that can do more in a race car, other than maybe Kim LaHaye, than 16-year-old Wendy Johnson, Tommy's sister. Boy, you just do it all. I say you're debriefing the computer, working on the blower, the torque wrench. What a job.
Yeah, I try to help him out as much as I can, because right now we don't have a sponsor, and we're trying to do the best we can.
Where did you learn all this? From your dad, your brother?
Both of them. I just started coming when I was younger, and now I just learned how to do everything.
Your brother just told me that if he wins this race, he might help you buy that competition eliminator car you want.
Yeah, I got my license in April, and now I'm wanting a car, but my dad hasn't bought me one yet, so we'll wait to see.
Well, maybe there's good news in your future in just a short time.
Thanks.
Wendy Johnson.
What a nice young lady, and that's where our sport is going to be carried into the 21st century, from people just like that.
I couldn't agree more. A crewman on the Joe Amato car turning on the computer. Even though it's the final round, Tim Richards wants more data for next year.
Oh, yeah, they don't want to make a run without that data. That's one of the most important things that come out of the run, other than the win line.
The final pair at the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals. Will it be the youngster Tommy Johnson Jr.'s first ever Top Fuel victory, or Joe Amato's fourth in a row at the Mile High Nationals? Tommy Johnson all over the racetrack. Joe Amato straight and true to a 5:05 at 274, a losing 5:29 with an off-the-pedal 259 miles an hour. Let's go to Don Garlits with Tim Richards on the starting line.
I tell you, Tim, when you and Joe set your mind to it, you're darn hard to beat.
Well, it was a little bit of both at this race. We very well could have been out of this race in the first round. He pedaled it, and we should have been out of the race in the first round, and that was really the driver. Maybe in the last round, that was the crew and the crew chief. But it's everybody working together. It's a team effort, and that's just what it takes.
Well, that definitely shows. It's definitely a team. That's what it takes in this modern, high-tech day and age.
There's no other way to be consistent. It has to be a team effort. And that goes from the driver right down to the guy that cleans the tires off. Thanks.
Congratulations.
One of the most analytical men I have ever met, Don Garlits.
Absolutely, Steve. Here we watch young Tommy Johnson Jr. well Joe Amato to the starting line, but it didn't last long. The Richards combination on that car is absolutely incredible. To take a brand new engine out of the trailer, plug it into the car, and run an even better ET than the round before makes one stop and wonder just what is the potential of that Valvoline car.
If I didn't like the name of the nearby mountain peak so much, it's called Mount Evans, I'd rename it Mount Amato. Unbelievable.
That's a grand slam, Steve. 4 times on the mountain. We won them all. I can't believe it. That's a lot of pressure to come here and have that on your shoulders.
You had to change a motor. You had no computer. It wasn't a particularly smooth day.
You know, my Tim Richards and Jeff Rogers, Wayne Cannon, my wife Jerry, Tom Vassie. If I forget it, I'm so shell-shocked.
Got to read the nose of the car.
Harry Wanser and Jim Walsh. Every one of them guys did an outstanding job. You know, we had to change the motor and do a lot of stuff. I'd like to dedicate this race to Joe Paisano. He's a good friend who died here this week. He had a Paisano funny car, and it's a sad weekend, but at least I can dedicate the race to him.
Well said, Joe. Mike Dunn echoed those same sentiments, as do we all. Again, congratulations. Well, there you see them, the mountain climbers of drag racing. Joe Amato, Mike Dunn, and Warren Johnson. Again, congratulations to them all. For Don Garlits and Bob Pride, I'm Steve Evans. So long from Morrison, Colorado.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is Harvey M. Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen.
Promote Seattle.